In this video, we're going to take a look at a brown ink by Noodler's Banker's Tan. Now, as always, there's timestamps down below so you can skip around, but if you've got the time, I'd appreciate you checking out the entire video. Also, down in the description is a link to the brown ink playlist, so if you want to see more brown inks or choose a different one, you can find that there. I'm an ink guy. Let's get into the first writing sample done on 90 GSM Clairfontaine. No bleeding, no ghosting. We get no feather, spread, halo sheen. We do get shading in the extra fine, and we get a little bit of shading in the medium. Both of them are a little bit darker than the stub. The extra fine took 4 seconds to dry, while the medium took 6. Now the scrubby for both do give us good color variation, and we are getting it in the writing, and the smear test I do not think you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. To have a range of experience with this ink, all of the writing samples are done with a Jinhao 159 with a 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a medium, and a Jinhao X750 with an extra fine. Then a TWSBI VAX 700 with a Fountain Pen Revolution broad nib was inked up, used for a day, and used to take the notes for this video. The next writing sample is done on 52 GSM Tomoe River. No bleeding, no ghosting. We have no feather, spread, halo sheen, no shade. The extra fine and medium are the same tone, thankfully darker than the stub. The extra fine took 6 seconds to dry, only 6 seconds on this. The medium took 10 seconds to dry, only 10 seconds on Tomoe River. The scrubby for both give us a tiny bit of color variation, but it's really not there, and the smear test, you do not stand a chance of recovery if you smear while you're writing. I agree with Vita. There's a lot to learn by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. A line of ink is put down, and then it's put into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And you see the grayish brown tone forming a line immediately on the bottom, and then a very bright golden brown moving its way up. This is a very pale ink, after all. Now the one on the right is let dry for 10 minutes before it's dunked into water, and that color is what I really wish this whole thing turned to, although it doesn't. Now you see that it very much forms a line and is not budging, giving you the real impression of how permanent this ink is. The next writing sample is done on 80 GSM Rhodia dot pad. No bleeding, and strangely, there's actually a little bit of ghosting here on the medium. Very strange for how light this ink is. We have no feather, spread, halo sheen, no shade in the stub. We do have shading in the extra fine. We do have it in the medium. The extra fine's much darker than the stub, and the medium's a little bit darker than the extra fine. Extra fine took 4 seconds to dry, while the medium took 6. Scrubby for both give us good color variation. We definitely get it in the writing, and the smear test, you can't recover if you smear, so be careful. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it may be to clean from your pen. The smear is allowed to dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, it performs basically well. It doesn't move and go away on you. It's just harder to read with the yellow backdrop than the white. Now, water did nothing to this. Neither did pen flush. They absolutely did nothing to move this ink at all. 1/3 bleach solution is lightening it up a little bit. Now, thankfully it's a very light ink, and thankfully it only took water to get it out of my pen. The next writing sample is done on TWSBI notebook paper. We have no bleeding, but again, we get a strange ghosting going on here. There's a reason I'm going to continue with these writing samples. We have no feathers, spread, halo sheen. We do get shading in the extra fine and little bits of shading in the medium. The extra fine's a lot lighter than the stub, thank you, but the medium's just a little bit lighter than the stub. Extra fine took 3 seconds to dry, and the medium took 5. Scrubby for both shows color variation. I wish we were getting that darker tone more. We do get it in the writing, and the smear test you can't recover if you smear while you're writing. For the inks tested, the average viscosity is 2.5, and the realm of normal is 2.1 to 2.9. Noodler's Banker's Tan has a viscosity of 2.1, so it is right on the edge of normal. If you're interested in how the viscosity test and all of that's done, then down in the description, there's a link to that video. The next writing sample is done on monocoque paper. No bleeding, you see it? We still have ghosting on such a light ink with cream paper. Very strange. We have no feather, spread, halo sheen. We do get shading in the extra fine and in the medium. Now the extra fine and medium are the same tone, thankfully much darker than the stub. Extra fine took 3 seconds to dry and the medium took 5. The scrubby for both give us plenty of color variation and it is there in the writing. The smear test you could not recover if you smeared while you were writing. For the inks tested, the average dry time was 17 seconds, and the realm of normal was 13 to 21 seconds. Noodler's Banker's Tan had an average dry time of 6 seconds. Very, very fast. The last writing sample is done on 28-pound copy paper. We do get bleeding spots that are occurring very deep into the page here with the medium, and I see it a little bit in a couple spots of ghosting. Not horrible, really, for the extra fine. Didn't touch the page underneath. This is where it actually did a little better. It has no feather and no spread, and, you know, I really expected it on this one, even though it's 28 pound. No halo, no sheen. It does shade. Here, that medium looks very nice. I really do like the medium here. As far as its darkness, not the particular tone that it's giving me. I understand it is tan, but that's not the normal tan for me to go for. The extra fine even shows some shading. The extra fine took 1 second to dry and is a whole lot lighter than the medium. The scrubby for the extra fine shows some color variation. We do see peppering of darker spots. And the smear test, you're not smearing it, so you could actually recover it if you smeared while you were writing. Instead of finding inks that look like Noodler's Banker's Tan, I'd prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I decided to go with a classic blue from Atramentis, their Robert Koch Adular Blue. Now, if you'd prefer a different complement color, then down in the description are links to those color playlists. What do I think of Noodler's Banker's Tan? This shows on camera much darker than in person. It's also super aggressive, and I don't like this ink at all. I need to think if I will ever use it again, and I unfortunately have a bottle. It's a really cool label though. So what nib and pen are going to give the best writing experience with this ink? This is contradictory because in order to get a hold of its aggressiveness, you want to use a dry fine or an extra fine. But it goes down so light that it may not be able to be read, which means you really need to use a very wet fine to try and bring that all together. So I don't know, go through the paper with a wet pen or don't be able to read it with a dry pen. It's very rare that I totally hate an ink. I hope you got something out of this video, and in the next video we're going to take a look at Sailor Kobe's Hitoba Pure Blue No. 2.